This is a battle where Masterbean is once again commanding his Danes against the Avars, this time with a slightly different army on a slightly different map. So let's see, he has more archers this time it seems. Viking hunters, armored archers, Viking hunters, Viking hunters, armored archers, levy freemen on the flanks.
The enemy has been spotted.
The infantry consists of sword-haired and big axes, warlord's companion, spearmen in the back, berserkers, Dane stuff. Then for the Avars, we have, here we go, Avar horse archers. Let's see, Avar lancers in the forest. And then we have levy archers together with some Avar noble swords and tribesmen. Tribesmen are dual purpose. They work both as archers and as spearmen, so they could be a nice choice. Thing is, they are slower than your standard archers, which is what I don't like about them. They are very nice, can be very nice against skirmish cavalry faction, but against the Danes in particular, I like the added firepower they give, but I would just go for standard archers instead. 8 standard archers, as many archers as you can bring, essentially. As many horse archers as you can bring, and then some light cavalry support. So in essence, this is a nice Avar army. But I would not bring Avar noble swords when you're going up against the Danes in particular, because the Danes have the tools to destroy those Avar noble swords very quickly. While the armored archers and the Viking hunters, they have much lower missile damage than these levy archers, and the levy archers using heavy shots can do a lot of damage to them, especially if they focus fire. Not the best trade for the levy archers, of course, because ideally you want your cavalry to deal with the skirmishers, and you want your skirmishers to deal with berserkers and big axes. Masterbean, though, wisely keeping his berserkers and big axes in the rear, firing on these levy freemen. And this is a forested map, so that's going to make the ammunition and the charges of the Avars less effective. Armored archers can take a lot of damage when they are positioned in a forest. But it's not necessarily a bad thing, killing off a unit of levy freemen with your horse archers if you're using heavy shot and removing that unit from the field, because removing that unit will make it easier for the Avars to kite. These units, the levy freemen, they have rapid advance, and that can be very annoying when your units start running out of stamina. But using the horse archers nicely in the back here, looks like the Danes are making a push for the forest. And Masterbean is keeping his squishy units fairly well protected in the center here, so there are a lot of units. There are a lot of units around his big axes and his berserkers. Berserkers really aren't that squishy. I mean, they have 60 armor, but because of their small unit size, they will drop to heavy shot really quickly. The levy archers already getting some killing done. The sword herdmen not in shield wall, the Viking hunters and the armored archers moving up. I don't really think the levy archers should pull back here. I think they should focus hard on some of these units. And more of our horse archers moving around the flanks here. You can see the Viking hunters should lose this, but yeah, the terrain is fairly even. The Viking hunters are focusing fire on this levy archer, whereas it doesn't, let's see, no, it doesn't seem like the Avars are focusing fire, and that's very important that they focus fire. The levy spears are here in spear wall, so they have a nice missile block chance there. Moving up the tribesmen. They have a nice bit of armor. They are sort of like armored archer spears. flaming arrows hitting the Avar guard. That's bad for the Avars, extremely bad. The tribesmen are killing something.
The enemy has found
The sword herdmen, now they are in shield wall, and this exposed tribesman is getting charged by big axes, and it's going to die horrendously fast. So the big axes would need to get fired on. The Avar guard is just standing here and taking the fire. It's easy to make this mistake, but it's a devastating one. This is a very expensive unit, losing a lot of men, and it's your general unit, so it's very bad. The Avar noble swords are positioned in a way that they are going to be engaged downhill. So that might come into play here. Very bad for the Avar noble swords. Here come the Avar lancers, nicely done, out of the forest into the armored archers. The Avar horse archers are fighting Levy freemen in combat, not the best of ideas. And of course the sword herdmen, they are chasing away the Levy spears. Well, the reform bug is still in, so when they are in shield wall and the unit disengages, they lose their shield wall. But the Avar noble swords are actually winning. But now, yeah, the sword herdmen get support from berserkers. The Avar noble swords have the 50 melee damage sword, so that helps them against the axe herdmen. The tribesmen charge in. They haven't been able to use much of their ammunition. The berserkers are going berserk here and getting a lot of killing done. The Avar guard is going into the big axes, going to cause some casualties here, but they've taken fire prior damage, and they're not going to like fighting those big axes in extended melee. And when they pull out now, if they pull out, it looks like they're trying to sort of pull through, but look at what happens to the unit then. The unit just disappears because it tried to continue when the unit wasn't knocked down. So once again, very, very easy to lose your cavalry in Charlemagne if you don't use it properly. Levy spears charging the sword herdmen, and now the Danes do what they do best. They just engage infantry and destroy it. Look at these berserkers just carving through the Avar nobles. And yeah, the general being dead, the low morale of the Avars is going to make the entire Avar army rout due to army losses and losing the general. So decisive victory there for the Danes, very nice. And I think I'll go into uploading some of my battles as well here with the Danes against the Avars, because there's a common theme in these battles, and it's that if you deny the Avar foot skirmish the time they need to do the damage to important units, then the Dane rush is just not manageable by the Avars. The Avars can bring a maximum of 4 melee infantry. In my opinion, against the Danes, they should bring 0 melee infantry. And there's too little cavalry in this army, I think. But that's the thing. If you're playing the Danes on a very forested map, the cavalry can be made significantly less effective by a forest, as indeed can your skirmishers. So whereas the Danes don't have any cavalry, they do have options for dealing with enemy cavalry. And the armored archers and the Viking hunters, although they are not really powerful, they are potentially very important. Another way of dealing with the Avars is to just spam infantry and continually move forward. When the micro slips on one of the Avar units, they're going to be destroyed very quickly by your infantry. But this approach, more balanced Dane approach with some skirmish and some spear support and solid infantry, it's hard to go wrong with that. And in my opinion, it requires better gameplay from the Avar player to be able to defeat the Danes. It requires more micro. Whereas the Danes can overall give attack orders, the Avars need to mind their range, skirmish around. So it's a bit more difficult to use the Avars, but in the hands of a very skilled player, the very skilled player has more options of defeating the Danes with the Avars than the Danes have of defeating the Avars. So the Avars can be a good counter against the Danes, but the Danes are not completely helpless. It really depends on how the Danes are used. And in this battle, Masterbean has used in these 2 battles I've posted from Masterbean. Thanks for sending them, by the way. Masterbean has done a really good job of mitigating the weaknesses of the Danes by using skirmishers, by using archers. Strength and honor.